What's good, ladies and gents? Happy New Year and welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, put it on all so you get notified of all the latest content as when we drop it. So there's a bit of what I would term bad news for women's boxing as USA Boxing, which is, I believe, the governing body of American amateur boxing. They've decided to change their policies and to add, I believe, this what they call a trans policy to allow what they call trans women to compete against biological women, real women, in boxing competitions, in boxing contests. I guess at the moment, from this body, it looks like this is affecting the amateurs. So I don't know about the pros, but this body, USA Boxing, is definitely the amateur. So I'm just going to read a bit of some excerpts from this article. The article I've seen it on various sources, but this one comes from Boxing Scene. I'm just going to read a few excerpts and just give my thoughts on this whole idea. So it reads as follows. It says the criteria include declaring their new gender identity, so men calling themselves women, completing gender reassignment surgery, and they've got in brackets bottom surgery, so in other words, having their genitalia removed as a man, and undergo regular hormone testing. Transgender fighters must undergo quarterly hormone testing, and provided USA Boxing with documentation of their hormone levels for a minimum of 4 years following surgery. So I suppose this is their kind of cop out here where they're saying, well, it has to be for 4 years. And something that's relevant here is that men have, I think, 10 nanomoles of testosterone. Women normally have about three. So keep that in mind as we read the next part. It says boxers who have transitioned from male to female must demonstrate that their total testosterone level has been below 5 nanomoles for at least 48 months. So they have to be below 5. Men normally have 10 for 48 months before their first competition. So they have to be around half the testosterone that a man normally has. The total testosterone level must remain below 5 nanomoles throughout the period of desired eligibility to compete in the female category. And then it goes on to say, and this is the part that I think women and myself, I find this very annoying. They then go on to say, the purpose of this policy is to provide fairness and safety for all boxers. And that's what USA Boxing stated. That's just a brief excerpt of the whole thing, the articles. It's quite lengthy, but to me, I just find this to be absolutely insane. And the cheek of them to actually put that the purpose of this policy is to provide fairness and safety for all boxers. I mean, that is absolutely insane and totally ironic because you're not making boxing safe. You're not making boxing equal for all people because women are going to suffer because of this. You know, we've seen what's happened in the UFC, not actually the UFC itself, sorry, another organization where you had, I think, this guy that was like a former soldier and he, quote unquote, transitioned to become a woman. And he went and competed against a woman and destroyed the woman. He destroyed the woman in 30 seconds. I mean, we see, you know, I don't want to harp on about this, but you see even a little footage of Clarissa Shields, and we know Clarissa Shields. She's a top female boxer. She's, you know, pretty much one of the best, if not the best, female boxer in the world today. And she went in there with a guy that, you know, he's just an average Joe. He only had about 8 fights, and he was able to just floor her, you know, with a sort of average looking right hand. So we know that there are these big differences, and I respect Ebony Bridges as well, who she chimed in on this, and I'll read you what she wrote, and I think it really does ring true because Ebony Bridges says, this is wrong on so many levels. I will never agree to this. It's bad enough having trans women breaking records in other sports like track and field, swimming, and powerlifting, but it's a bit different to them breaking our skulls in combat sports where the aim is to hurt you. in capital letters, not just break a record. However, I think it's wrong in all sport. I have nothing against trans, but can't be skewing the line in sport. You don't see reference or debates for trans men in sport because it's not a threat. And this is something that Ebony Bridges, she's, whatever you think of her, she stated this on social media. And I give her credit for this because, at the end of the day, she's 100% correct. You think to yourself, well, okay, why don't you see this the other way round? Why don't you see women, so-called trans men or whatever it's called, why don't you see that argument happening? Why don't you see rules being made for that to take place? And it's all because of the basic reason that, well, there's no advantage. At the end of the day, you can pretend you're a man and do whatever surgery you want to become a man, but if you're born a woman, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And that's why you don't see it the other way around. It's always the man becoming the woman because the man has an advantage. And, in conclusion, to me, I think this policy is absolutely insane. It's evil and it's extremely dangerous for women. And I say that as a person who's watched boxing, who's participated in boxing, and anyone who's watched boxing for any length of time will know of serious injuries. We look at Gerald McClellan. Gerald McClellan. In a male versus male fight, he's his whole life has changed. The guy is blind. The guy is I believe deaf as well. And this is all as a result of one fight. We look at people like Michael Watson. He's kind of been able to walk again, but he's in, having to have carers, 24/7 because of the life-changing injuries that he's sustained in boxing. We look at people like Mike Towell, who died as a result of, a male-on-male fight. We look at, there's so many guys. I think Subriel Matias, unfortunately, one of his opponents died after a fight. We look at guys like the Russian, Sergio, I forget his, not Kovalev, sorry, Sergey Kovalev. Now, Sergey Kovalev, devastating puncher. And on Sergey Kovalev's record, there's a guy that he fought, I forget the name of the guy, but one of his opponents in the past was, was killed after a fight as results of injuries sustained in a male versus male boxing match. So how can any sane person or any sane governing body in their right mind allow a biological man, whatever the surgery he's had or whatever, to fight against a biological woman? This is insane. And that's why I say it's an evil thing, because if we've had fatalities in male on male fights, what on earth do you think is going to happen when you put a biological man in there against a biological woman? The bone density is different. Men are stronger, bigger, naturally tougher, and can naturally take more punishment, more trauma when it comes to boxing. So the idea of putting a biological man versus a biological woman is absolutely insane, and it's evil, because what that could mean is that it could just completely destroy women's boxing. Because you got many, you got some decent women. Some people are into it, some people not. But you got world champions, you got Katie Taylors, you got all these different guys. Serrano, there's many female boxers. And you imagine now, all of a sudden a guy has quote unquote transitioned. He's going to have that edge in testosterone, edge in speed, edge in strength, edge in every single physical category over that female. And what do you think is going to happen? This is, at the very least, I would argue, going to lead to neurological injuries, brain damage, and we've seen fatalities in male boxing. So this could lead to fatalities, of course, if you allow the man to fight a woman. This is insanity and it's evil, and this is something that could destroy women's boxing. We've seen what it's done with the swimming. I mean, a man, that was, average at swimming for a man, goes in there and decides that he's a woman and then swims against women. And what happens? He breaks all the records and he completely takes over the sport. And that's what happens. And that's what will happen in boxing if this is allowed to take place. And for me, I don't agree with this type of thing at all, because the bottom line is, if you're actually a woman, then you don't need surgery to become one. If you're actually a man, you don't need surgery to become one, because that is what you are naturally. And I think this policy is something that needs to be stopped. I think the only logical thing you could do, although I don't agree with it, is you could create a category where these people who have transitioned, quote unquote, can go ahead and fight each other, because at least they're equals. They're against people who've gone through the same surgery. They're against people who've gone through the same thing. So you could have a category for them. But I think, this idea, if you're born as a man, you should not be fighting no woman. That is ridiculous and that is evil, because it could destroy the women's sport completely. So that's my thoughts on this thing. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism over and out.